Welcome to Touched and Empowered, a show created to empower individuals to value their lives by hosting think tank discussions that will inspire positive action. Touched and Empowered with Katie and Ace starts now. And now, part 2 of Milestones After Healing.
There was a book that I read that helped me a lot with my grief recovery because it pointed out that anytime there is significant change or loss, period, there will be grief.
Yep.
So moving from my apartment to the townhouse when I was 7 and losing my favorite stuffed animal, there was grief there.
There will be grief there.
You know, losing a job, there's a sense of loss of identity and a sense of grief.
Exactly.
So it's not just grief around relationships with people or relationships with pets. It's any kind of significant change where things can't go back to the way they were.
That's true. And I'm going to say something that is very specific to Los Angeles.
Okay.
When you are strong enough to leave Los Angeles, after you get here for some time, you've healed something. I'm going to say that for a fact. I feel like people come here because they want more love in their life, and then they end up going into like the industry and whatever, and then they discover something about themselves, and they either stay here or they leave.
That can be said for a lot of places.
Yeah. Now come to Los Angeles and tell me otherwise. If it's no. I mean more of the. I'm sorry. I meant to say it more of like come to Los Angeles and tell me what kind. It's a very specific type.
Okay. Because I'm sitting here and I'm thinking and I'm like, I have been in Los Angeles. I was there for 5 days.
Great, you healed.
I was going to say that I will say that the energy of Los Angeles is very different than the energy I felt of anywhere else.
Yeah, it's a very specific portal.
Yeah, but it's just like the energy of Hawaii is very different than anything I've felt anywhere else.
Yeah.
So there are places that have their own energy signature.
Yeah, 100%. And speaking of what I just mentioned in regards to energy signature and vortexes, I said portal. I meant to say vortex.
Right.
I don't know when this is going to air, but I think it's going to be safe for me to say this when it does. I really hope. Because Katie and I already know that we're like, all right, we'll keep this a secret.
You're actually going to share it now?
Oh, heck yeah. I don't know when this is going to air. I hope it moved by this point. So yes, ladies and gentlemen, another significant way for you to know that you're healing or you're in a place where you've healed something, moving.
That is a big change.
It is a big change. So I'm like I actually found I'm brainstorming where I'm going to move to next. And no, it's not because of the election. Still.
No, because you were talking about this for a really long time.
Yeah. So I'm like, am I going to Croatia? Am I going to Sardinia? Where am I going? And it could be in the country, but every time I think about staying in the country, I'm like, yeah, it doesn't feel good, especially if they're paying people to move to those areas. Get a house.
Yeah, there are different countries that are offering fantastic deals for people to come move there.
Yeah, Sardinia in Italy has a mainly seafood diet, which is great for my health. Like, the only thing is, my dog. So I have to make sure that I can figure out a way to transport my mini pony.
Yes.
But yeah, so essentially we're still looking, we're in the midst of looking and seeking for these places. And maybe once this airs, I'll be like, hey, this is where I'm at. But the idea is to move. I felt like now that I'm in a space where I've healed a good portion of my life, and I also don't feel like I'm tied down to anything or anyone. it's like such a beautiful state of freedom where it's like the world is my oyster. I can go anywhere now. And
True.
my debt is not bad. I don't have actually I really don't have much debt, to be honest. I know a lot of people stay in the country because of course they have to like pay their credit card
Right.
bill
Whatever they
debt,
have.
which could be over 30 grand. I don't have that now.
Right.
Now,
Because you've already done that work.
because I've done that work. Thank you. Thank goodness I've done that work. And then on top of that, when it comes to education, going out of the country to learn more sounds more stimulating. There's no relationship that's keeping me from staying. Sorry, I'm doing a lot of fun dance moves on YouTube, guys. It's making it rain here. But like, there's that, and then there's also just there's a bit of a wonderlost, if that makes sense.
Hmm.
Be- because like I felt like I've been tied down to this one location for whatever reason. Um, like benchmark 32.
Right.
Plus, I'm graduating into a different like sector of so in our religious organization with SGI, essentially there are different tiers of like groups that support each other. So young women's division, young men's division, all that fun stuff, right? So I'm graduating from the young part because apparently I'm not young anymore.
Oh, you grew up.
Oh, look at that. Who knew? When did that happen? Sorry. Sorry. I mean, I feel like because we're on this podcast together, I think based off of what we talk about and also the nonprofit that we support,
Right.
I've learned that being wise, I guess, doesn't come with youth, or it does come with, it depends. I feel like you go through specific life experiences and events in your life that bring you into maturity. And regardless of age, you could be over 32, you could be younger than 32. That usually puts you in a place where you have a perspective that comes from wisdom because you've experienced things that are possibly difficult to experience
Yes.
at a young age.
Well, there's also the fact that I don't know about anyone else, but when I was that 16, 17, 18 age, I thought I was indestructible. I thought I knew everything. I was ready to take on the world. I was ready to get out of my parents' house. I was ready to live on my own. The big shift for me was the summer between my junior and senior year of high school where I broke my right femur.
I remember this story. Yeah.
And I was
Yeah.
like, oh, yeah, no, I am not prepared to do anything on my own right now.
Yeah. It's, oh gosh, like being in a debilitating state like that, whew, you learn so fast how to be
Yes.
grateful for the things you didn't realize you had.
Yeah. But that's the thing, though. It was part of the growing
Yeah.
process, it was part of the healing process.
Oh yeah.
And, you know, the only thing that I can, all of the healing that I have done, grief wise, trauma wise, and everything else like that, I have to remind myself that I don't have the same landmarks as I did when I broke my leg. And I
Yeah,
had
that's true.
to relearn how to walk and do physical
Right.
therapy. And it took almost a year for me to walk without a
Right.
limp.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, there's not that kind of milestones now.
Right. And but it's also scary because like now that you know that what to do when
Right?
that happens, which by the way, most of America, so half of America right now, we're gonna put a little bit of politics in this. I hope that's okay. I'm gonna make sure that it's very objective,
Okay.
it's impartial,
Okay.
even though most people know where I stand. But the impartial part of this is half of America is like, oh fuck. And then the other half of America is like, woo,
Right.
right? We've been here before, right?
Right.
So the part of America that I just blatantly cursed. Please bleep that out, Nicole. I'm so sorry. Yeah, please bleep that out. The one that I cursed out with, because we've done this before, we kind of understand how we can do this again, right?
Yes.
The other half that is like, woohoo, we've done this before. We can do this again.
Right. It's the same thing as any other lesson.
Memory. Yeah, it's a muscle memory. It's not as bad as like the first time it happened, and it's also either as good as the first time it happened too. Like,
Well, the only thing I know is that no matter when this airs, there's going to be people who are going to say yay, and there are people who are going to say nay.
Mhm.
And it doesn't matter whether someone is listening to it for this election or if they're listening to it for an election 14 years from now.
16.
Whatever. I can't do math.
You're close.
Whatever. It could be, not in our lifetime. This might still be here, when my son's a grandpa. Oh, that's kind of scary. But still, there's always going to be people who say yay and always going to be people who say nay.
Right.
The point that I want to make is that wherever you are, in whatever it is, know your truth, but don't force it on other people.
Yeah, let them heal.
Let them heal, because again, we don't know what's going on in anyone else's world. We don't know what anyone else's opinion is on anything else that's going on, in their head.
Mm-hmm.
So don't assume anything.
Yeah. You actually never know which parts of healing people are going through. Heck, I didn't know.
Yeah. Heaven knows I didn't know either.
Yeah, it's like that quote that I told everybody. Well, sure, Katie read out loud. It's that's what was happening all this year. And I can tell you right now, I'm pretty okay. I'm happy, I'm fine. I was challenged probably the most this year with everything. Emotional, physical. There were only 4 near-death experiences this year within 3 months. But I'm okay.
But we are grateful for the books. We are grateful for the blog posts, the social media, the content that's out in the world, and the people that we talk to who shine the light on our milestones for doing this kind of healing, because we don't see it in ourselves.
Absolutely. And we're all grateful for it, because goodness gracious gravy.
Gracious gravy?
Gracious gravy. I have a starburst in my mouth, by the way. That's why it's also like, if you haven't heard that. This is to help me add some lemon light to what we're talking about and discussing. It is really fascinating to see how much you've healed, because the thing is, you can't really tell. And as much as you can say to somebody, oh yeah, I healed.
Yes.
You can say it, but honestly, sometimes when you forget about the healing and whatnot,
it's almost more rewarding.
Oh, it's beautiful.
When you get a message from, a random reel that someone shares with you that lets you know that they've seen that you've healed.
Right? And you know what's funny?
What?
So in that blog, one of my friends that we disconnected a long time ago, and I actually had to forgive myself before reading this text message, by the way, for not connecting with this person. I forgot what it was. I think I moved to California and there was so much going on that it's like it was hard to keep in touch. And I remember he was so mad at me because he was like, I tried calling you, finding you wherever the heck I could find you, and you didn't answer. And then I just didn't think anything of it, because I'm over here trying to get that was the second time I was fired around that time.
Trying to get your feet back underneath you?
Yeah, exactly. I was like, sorry, I don't have time to like, yeah. But anyways, I was able to kind of forgive myself in that situation to know that I was really going through it. And was hard to reconnect, but then I was able to appreciate the support that he gave me. So he sent me these very direct yet encouraging text messages. And I screenshotted them and put them up on that Tumblr. Those were from 12 years ago. And those
Yeah.
words still stand to this day. And when I read them, I went, wow, I was stuck in the same loop for 12 years. And I could finally look at it and go, oh, yeah, I believe you now. That's how I know I healed.
And at times like that, all we can do is say thank you.
Exactly. Do you want to look at it?
I think that might be something to do after the podcast recording because we don't know if they want to be up on our podcast or not.
We don't. They don't want it. No, well, they're not named on there.
Okay, if you want to share.
I do. So let's go to that next. Okay. There.
Do I need to try to pull it up? I don't know if I can pull it up on this blog.
No, I'm gonna text Katie.
Oh, okay.
Difficult.
It's a good thing that I kind of know how to do all of this, where you text me a photo and I know how to share it.
Thank goodness gracious. Yeah. Thanks goodness gracious, gravy. Okay. Thank you. I'd be lost without you.
Well,
I
I
could do
appreciate
it, but I'd go nuts and crazy all at once. And you keep a level head. Thank you.
You're welcome. I'm glad that it all works out. So, oh, these are the text messages you were talking about.
This was from 12 years ago. I wish I saw this last year, but this was from 12 years ago from a different situation, dating wise. And I was like, ooh, I'm surprised now. Sent this to some other friend, and she was like, the world needs to see these. I was like, oh, okay. Let me premise these text messages. So essentially, this individual knew I was really hurting 12 years ago. 12 years ago, wow. Knew I was really hurting from a relationship where somebody just wasn't there when I needed them, right? And not in the sense of codependency, but in the sense of like actually being a real partner. And because of that, what ended up happening was I was so hurt and I was so angry. And this was my good friend's response.
All right. You want to tell him how he effed it all up. You could. But why do you want to? If you want to possibly get back together, do it. But let him fight to get you back. Really test him. See if he doesn't give up down the line. Maybe he gets another chance. If you're finished, don't bother. That's his loss. Okay, so that's actually the second one. The first one should have been, and look at what he did with it. He effed it up and took you for granted, making what I can safely say was probably the biggest mistake he'll ever make. Let him sit with that shame. That's that embarrassment. You'll find better. Final one was, let's be honest, you may struggle at times, but that's always been you. Still here, stronger than ever. Always beating things, always finding a way, always getting stronger, always going forward. And that's where you are now. Just another bump in the road you're going to move past.
Oh, what do you think, Katie?
That is somebody who sees the true you.
Yes, I appreciate him.
And that is a wonderful message. I have received not similar messages, but this part as to still here and being stronger.
Mm.
And that no matter what speed bump is in the road, you're going to keep going further. You know, this last section is the kind of messages that I have from one of my friends who, no matter what, sees the strength that the inner strength that he says that I've always had. I never saw it. Starting to. So yeah, so I don't have screenshots of any of the messages he sent me over the years, but I remember them.
That's beautiful. Yeah, I mean, who would have known 12 years ago this would have been applicable again?
Right.
But it was very fascinating because when I read these, I went, wow, I actually did what you told me this time.
Well, lessons learned, we move forward, we become stronger.
Exactly. And the thing is, I don't think I need to test people anymore.
No, there comes a point after you test it a few times that you're done. You don't need to test it anymore. There will come and it's with anything. You either test something for success or you test something to see whether it's a good idea or not. And one of two things happens. You either rule out all possibilities that it's a good idea, or you find a way to make it work.
Or you heal.
Or you heal, but when you heal, you don't go back to that same pattern anymore.
Exactly. What I actually recognized was like, there's always a deeper reason why we keep doing the same pattern for whatever reason, right?
Right.
So in this situation, I figured it out. And I think we talked about it on our last episode, but limerence, understanding limerence, where that is, where the deep healing really needs to happen. And I actually went even deeper because I'm tired of the past 12 years, apparently. I was able to really see exactly what I needed, where I needed it, and how I needed it. And things have shifted pretty fast. Another thing that I've noticed, especially after breakups or relationships, when you've healed from a relationship, when you can see the person that you were with and you don't feel hurt, you don't necessarily, don't get me wrong, you could still love the person, I guess, but it's not the same. Like there's a different caliber of love and you can let them go without issue. You can just go, okay, well, thank you very much.
Very much so. And it's beautiful to see that because heaven knows we've run into people from our past on occasion.
You want to know something I did that I don't know if it's a good thing? Folks, this is for the drama.
Okay, go for it.
For this specific text message, I actually remember who the guy was.
Okay.
And I actually called him back after 3 years. And I asked him if he wanted to get coffee. I was living in New York City at the time. And we got coffee. His patterns didn't change.
Right.
That's okay. I remember sitting down with him and explaining to him after what happened, I wanted to thank him. Because if it wasn't for what he did, I wouldn't have busted my butt in college. I wouldn't have gotten into a graduate program that is probably one of the hardest to get into. I wouldn't have focused so hard on the things that I needed to do for myself and my friends. And without what he did, I wouldn't have known how to take care of myself to the extent where if I was at all fails, there's no way I could be codependent.
And that
he was so mad.
Oh, I'm sure.
And I was like, I didn't mean for it to be that way, but I really wanted to thank you because look, I'm doing great. And he was so pissed. Oh my gosh, I didn't mean for him to be afraid. But it was one of those moments that I could say thank you.
Which is one of the reasons why I loved the grief work that I do, because it allows me to heal, and whether it's internal work or whether I'm actually writing it out, I tell the other person what they did do, what they should have done, what they shouldn't have done. Tell them what I'm appreciative of, the lessons I learned from them, the things I apologize for, because heaven knows I'm not perfect. and then say goodbye. And they do not read that letter. They do not get to hear my internal thoughts. So they will never know that I've forgiven them. They will never know what I appreciate from them. So then I don't have to worry about them getting pissed off at me when I have the conversation like you had with your this person.
I mean, 9 years later, this person still follows me on Instagram, and I've seen him recently on my stories, so I'm very grateful for that. But yes, I'm saying that from a point of view of like, no, it's not necessarily poetic justice, but it is one of those things where sometimes people come into your life for a purpose and a function. Actually, not just sometimes, all the time. It always happens. It always serves some type of purpose for your highest good. And even if at the time it could have hurt, regardless of how much it was damaging, after you do what you got to do, you'll see why you can thank them in the future. And once you're at that moment of thank you, regardless if you tell them to their face or not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's going to be a personal choice
feeling
on that, because there's a few people that in my world that were so toxic that I will never talk to them again. But I learned some very valuable lessons from them, and I am grateful for those lessons because now I will never repeat them.
There you go. Yes.
So I can still express my gratitude in my writings and my little internal monologue thing, but they will never know.
Yeah, this person. Yes. But I also think like sometimes somebody feels awful for what they've done. And don't get me wrong, that's not your own responsibility
Right.
to appease them for their bad behavior. That's never that's not something you should normally condone. But sometimes if they know that you're okay,
that's enough.
that's enough.
And it really is a case by case basis.
Yeah. I actually used to do that as an exercise every week because I was like militantly diligent too at the time. I don't do this as much anymore. Goodness gracious. More gentle now. But every week I would go through everyone who pissed me off. And I would try and find or piss me off, made me sad, whatever. And I would go through each of them and I would do a forgiveness type of, very similar to the grief thing. I would do a forgiveness thing so I could let it go. Because if I couldn't let it go, I couldn't work. That was getting me really annoyed, actually. That got me more frustrated than anything. So I would go through a list of like whoever was really like taking up space in my brain. And I would say, very similar to the grief, blank, you did this. And because you did this, it pissed me off. Or insert a bunch of other emotions.
Right.
I understand why you did it though. Based off of what's going on in your own life.
Mm-hmm.
And I let you go and I let it go. I forgive you. Thank you. And when I would see them, I wouldn't get pissed off. And if they did the same thing, I actually didn't know, but on like a weird subconscious level, I would respond differently. I just didn't know how I was going to respond.
Right.
But I would respond differently, and then they wouldn't actually repeatedly do the same thing.
Which that makes sense. And because that's one of the things that we found, or at least that I found when dealing with bullies.
Yeah.
If you stop responding to a way that always gets a reaction, you change the way you respond. Eventually you'll come up with a response that they don't react to, and they either change their behavior or they leave you alone.
Or they get fired. It all depends.
Or they get fired or decide to move or whatever.
Yeah, they either get fired, decide to move. There were so many. There were like, I was like, wow, the universe had my back on that one. They just like ripped them away. But now, also when you learn a lesson, because there's always a mission with somebody that's in your environment. Once the mission is complete, you don't have to be in each other's spheres anymore.
Yes, that's true. The saying, everyone comes into your life for a reason or a season, comes to mind.
Yeah. And if it's a lifetime,
A lifetime can be a season.
that is true and wise.
Oh my gosh, I'm ending the episode on a wise note.
Heck yeah.
I'm showing my gray hair today. Okay.
Love it. Thank you.
On that note, thank you everyone for hanging in for this joint episode, because we know we're going to break it up into two, and we'll see everyone next time. Bye.
Thank you for joining us. We hope that the discussion today will inspire you to take positive action in your life. Until next week, be empowered.